protect. We don't want a biotechnology that abuses them. We don't want a biotechnology that profits off their bodies. And I just say, how dare us put their health on the line, play with their own future fertility, and be so casual about it.
Patients are being told with various diseases and injuries to promote embryonic stem cells or cloning, but no one has revealed to these patients that there's a much safer and I believe much more effective alternative is to use their own stem cells.
We go through remarkable and sophisticated mental somersaults in an attempt to tell ourselves that somehow this should be justifiable, that somehow this really should be okay, when in point of fact we know, just based on the basic biology, that there is a profound violation at the root of this proposal.
Not only is embryo-destructive research morally wrong, it has not cured anyone of anything. Adult stem cell research is already helping the sick today, while offering still greater hope for the future. The reality is, we can support the science of stem cells, finding cures and protecting life.
Hi, welcome back to the show. I've got Michelle Knopp, and we're loving that video. You know, I think my favorite part was talking about the hands off our ovaries. I love that. That just cracks me up. I think I even brought a little blurb from the website they have that has the T-shirt and a mug you can order. I think that is the cutest thing I've ever seen, and I think it's really important that we talk some more about what you were saying, people donate eggs, and then what else is going on? I mean, for couples, and then there are other reasons too, right?
Definitely. There's a lot of couples that utilize a very similar process to create a child using in vitro fertilization, or creating a child outside of the womb and then implanting the embryo in the mother's womb or a surrogate's womb. For some of these women, they will use their own eggs.
Right.
And for them, they've gone through so much to try to get that baby that it's worth the risk. They might understand, they might not understand. I mean, there's a lot of emotions involved in the whole process of infertility.
But they're trying to have their own child.
They're trying to have their own child.
Yeah.
They're pretty desperate. I mean, I have friends that have gone to pretty extreme means because they do get in that desperate state.
Yeah.
Then for other women who they're not trying to create their own child, but they're donating for other people who do not have eggs of their own, there's a pretty significant, people do have altruistic motivations, but the money is a huge factor.
It always is, isn't it?
It's a very big factor. And I mean, they're going through a lot. They're putting a lot at risk. I'm not saying they're being paid too much. But it is a big decision-making factor to be willing to overlook risks.
And it's your life.
It is your life. It is very possibly your life. And creating of your own children.
Right.
I mean, they don't think of it that way, but they are creating their own children.
They certainly are.
Like I said at the very beginning of the show, in the United States, it's illegal to pay women to donate their eggs for research.
Okay.
So if those eggs are not being used to create embryos for infertility treatments, they cannot pay the women to donate them.
Interesting.
Well, yeah, and
how do they get around that? There's got to be a way, right?
Well, what they found is nobody's willing to do the donation process, truly donating. I mean, they're not willing to go through it.
Go through all that for research.
Right. A couple months ago in England, so the fall of '07, some researchers finally, they gave up. They tried for over a year to get women to truly donate their eggs for research, for embryonic stem cell research.
Okay.
So they wanted women to go through this whole process, harvest their eggs, create embryos, and then destroy those embryos at 5 days for their stem cells to work on the research in the whole embryonic stem cell field. They couldn't find women to do it. So they finally gave up trying to find women and moved to using cow eggs for the process of creating embryos. So it's not something women are willing to do for free.
Okay.
If they're not trying to create their own baby, trying to fulfill their dreams of building their own family, and if they're not being given a pretty hefty check, they're not going to do it. It's too invasive.
Yeah. Well, it's mind-boggling to me how much we're talking about when this whole thing with the cloning, and you were telling me some statistics when we were on the break. Can you say that again?
Yeah, definitely. In 2002, the RAND Corporation paid for research on the frozen embryos that were in American infertility clinics. These were supposedly the embryos that were going to unlock the mysteries of embryonic stem cell research, right? If we only allowed government funding to destroy these and do experiments on them, we'd get all these therapies. Well, and the number was thrown around a lot in the media that there were 400,000 frozen embryos, and that was plenty. That was all they needed. Well, that very same study said that 88% of those embryos, the families, the parents, the people who created those embryos had said, you may not touch those, we might want to use them later to try to build their family.
So that wasn't a truthful figure.
It wasn't at all a truthful figure. It was discovered, there was another percentage.
Color me surprised.
Yeah, exactly. Like, wow, completely honest reporting? There's another percentage that the parents had said, destroy them. I don't want anything done with them. I want them destroyed. I don't want anybody else to be able to use them. Only 2.8% of those eggs were designated for, the parent said you can use them for research. Well, that number dropped down to where there's only about 11,000 embryos in the entire United States that were available for this destructive research.
And you're saying that's nowhere near enough for what they have in mind.
Definitely not, because the process is very inefficient. It can take anywhere from 10 to 15 embryos to get one that they can work with, one stem cell line that they can experiment.
That is never talked about. No, you just heard it here first. That is never here.
So the number, we kept hearing that 400,000 embryos that are going to solve all of our medical ills, it actually worked out down to the potential of maybe about 630.
And they're not going to solve anything, are they?
They've already used them. They're gone.
They've never cured one disease, have they? We talked about this with Elizabeth from Oregon Right to Life, and I said, Elizabeth, get out your list of everything they've cured, and it wasn't a long list because it was 0.
Right.
So, and the same thing.
Right, and so they don't have any more of these frozen embryos, so now they're having to clone embryos. And whether it's the British scientists that are using cow eggs and human DNA to create hybrid embryos to do experiments on, or if it's American researchers who are cloning human embryos to do research on, they're cloning and killing human beings because the frozen embryos was really a myth.
And people need to understand an embryo is a tiny human being. Everything's there. All the DNA, everything that makes us human is the very young human, and that isn't something to be experimented on. It's not just a clump of cells.
Right. We hear a lot about potential human life.
Yes, you hear the word potential sneaking in everywhere now, and it serves them to do that.
It does, because an embryo is hardly a cute baby picture. I mean, it's really when you look at an embryo, the microscopic picture, it doesn't look anything that fantastic. But if you're going to go on science, which is what we're always told, don't debate religion, don't debate morals, talk science. Well, scientifically, a human life begins at conception.
Not implantation.
Not implantation.
Now, this week.
Not the 3rd trimester. Not birth. Any other line that we draw after conception is arbitrary. And I'll tell you what, Luann, you would hear screaming from the rafters if we decided that, because one of the things we heard about the frozen embryos was, well, they're going to die anyway. Shouldn't we use these lives for something good? Well, those are human lives. Absolutely. If they were human lives on death row who are going to be killed anyways,
there'd be
and we were
protesters
extracting their body parts
all over the place.
And rightly so.
And rightly so.
Rightly so. It would be an outrage. And they're not as cute, but it's the same thing.
They are the same thing, and I'm so glad you put it that way. And we're out of time, unfortunately. But thank you so much, Michelle. And we look forward to having you again so we can learn more.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I'll reach out for your help, saying up above.